Welcome. I am the bookkeeper. In my possession is an original, untitled manuscript of real life Scottish ghost stories. These stories have never before made it into the public domain. The authorities at the time of the incidents made sure of this, and to this day will deny the validity of them. My location and my reasons for sharing these stories will remain private. However, be aware that I do so with great risk to myself, and by continuing to listen, your safety cannot be guaranteed. So, without further delay, I will read the entry entitled Sorloths Graveyard. In 1983, near Torrin on the east coast of the Isle of Skye, Podrick and Katie finished their last whisky and cokes and handed their glasses over to the barman. No chance of a lock-in, murmured Podrick. Ha, laughed the barman. I'm out in the fishing boat at sunrise tomorrow. I'll be like a corpse if I don't get some sleep. Anyway, take care travelling back to your camper van. These parts can be quite treacherous at night if you're not careful. Stick to the roads. Will do, Christian, smiled Katie. Thanks for a lovely evening. The stars glistened in the sky as the carefree tourists ambled along the coastal road towards their VW camper van, some 2 miles away around the next peninsula. Look, yelped Podrick. That path must head over towards our campsite. Probably cut our walk in half. Buoyed by the warm whisky still coursing through her veins, Katie smiled wryly as she looked him in the eye. Well, Christian did say stick to the roads, but then you know I hate being told what to do. Only too well, laughed Podrick, as he grabbed her hand and they made their way up the gentle incline of the path into the darkness. Half an hour had passed, and the clear skies had made way for rolling mists sweeping across the hill. Well, this was a great idea, Podrick. We've not even seen the coast in ages. Maybe we should head back the way we came. Podrick exhaled as he looked at his watch, the biting chill from the sea breeze making his hands and face numb. A sharp contrast from the open fire they'd enjoyed all night in the Fish and Tackle Inn. It's nearly midnight. There's no way I'm going back all that way. Look, I think I see a light further up ahead. There must be someone still up can point us in the right direction. 10 more minutes passed as they continued along the path towards the light through the mist. Their amble turned more hastily in their concern. Soon they reached some large cast-iron gates off to the left of the path, joining a dry stone dike either side. The plaque on the gates read, Sorloths Graveyard, keep out. You've got to be kidding me, sighed Podrick. I am not going into a graveyard at midnight in the middle of bloody nowhere, said Katie sternly. No thank you. Look, countered Podrick, the light's coming from a cottage up the back there. That must be where the gravekeeper stays. I'm guessing he's called Sorloth. I'm sure he'll be happy to help us get back to the van. Yes, replied Katie. I'm sure he's sitting there praying some strangers ignore his sign and come chapping at his door at midnight. The gate was heavy and gave out an almighty creak as it opened, the sound travelling far in the otherwise silent night air. The pair made their way slowly through the pathless graveyard. Katie wrapped round the left arm of Podrick. This is the creepiest place I have ever seen, winced Katie. Let's take this path, Katie. This will cut our journey in half, she said sarcastically. Look at this place, replied Podrick, not really listening. These gravestones look hundreds of years old. The weather-beaten, moss-covered stones stood tilted to their sides and laid out strangely, ununiformly for a graveyard. Then, from behind them, a laugh of a young girl cut through the silence like a knife. Katie let out a high-pitched yelp from the shock as they turned around. No one was there. Then something caught their eye to the left, a white figure darting between 2 gravestones, then disappearing, followed by another chuckle from a young girl. Who's there? Said Podrick aggressively, fear now gripping both of them, their senses heightened to full alert mode. No reply. Christ, Podrick, did you see that? I'm not sure, come on. As they turned back round, their bodies tensed up in terror. Stood before them was a small girl, no older than 7 or 8, staring straight at them. She had a white nightie on and bare feet. Her hair was brown and shoulder length but was up in pigtails. Katy tried to calm her heart and focus her eyes, but as she did, she noticed the complexion of the girl was pale beyond anything she'd ever seen before. "Hello," quivered Podrick. His aggression had completely deserted him as he felt the shock tingle around every part of his body. "We're lost. Can you help us?" The young girl stared into their eyes emotionless for what seemed like an age, but was no more than a few seconds, before replying in a soft tone befitting a girl of her age. "Beware of where you trample here, for Sorloth's wrath you should fear." Then her emotionless face lightened with a smile, and she let out a laugh and darted off to the side and disappeared behind a tombstone. They both stood as if paralysed, breathing in and out sharply, as if they'd just been running. Then an almighty bang came from the cottage up ahead, only a couple of 100 yards away. Then another bang as the door swung open, revealing a huge, dark, shadowy figure. Out stepped a giant of a man, middle-aged with haggard face and beard, stocky build with big, thick arms like tree trunks. He had old faded blue jeans on covered in soil and dirt, a dirty white t-shirt underneath a ripped red check shirt. In his right hand he had a large old shovel with a wooden handle. As the couple still just stood there staring, unable to comprehend what series of events were unfolding before them, the man let out an almighty roar that must have reverberated round the entire island. Something akin to a battle cry warriors of the past would have let out before charging into battle. "Run!" shouted Podrick as he manhandled Katy, turning her round and pushing her towards the gate down the bottom of the graveyard. His fight-or-flight defences had immediately kicked into action. Katy started running. She ran like she'd never ran before, the adrenaline pumping through her body. There it was, the gate up ahead, still open from when they'd entered. Then a thud from behind, followed by a cry of pain. She stopped and turned round. "Podrick," she cried, her voice high-pitched out of desperation. Where was he? Then a groan came from underground. She darted forward a few steps before realising what had happened and gasped in horror. Podrick had fallen down an open grave. His ankle had snapped and was right angles from his leg. A sharp shard of bone pierced through his sock, and the bright white almost illuminated the grave like a torch. "Podrick," she started crying as if realising immediately what this meant. Podrick managed to sit up on his elbows before looking down at his legs. He immediately fell back down on his back and covered his face as he let out a scream, a loud mixture of pain and fear and realisation and defeat. "Go," he cried. "Go get help. Help." Katy, with her face all twisted up and tears streaming down her cheeks, lifted her gaze away from Podrick. She looked at the gravestone, and a word immediately caught her eye. "Podrick. Here lies the bodies of Podrick Carson and Katy O'Shea, R.I.P." "Go," cried Podrick again, louder and more desperate than before, if that was possible. That shook Katy from her gaze at the gravestone, and she glanced at Podrick before looking up at where they'd ran from. No more than 100 yards away, the large man was hurtling down the hill towards them, shovel in tow. "Please, Katy, go." Katy locked eyes with Podrick for a second, her eyes blurry. Then, without saying anything, she turned and she ran. She ran out of the gate to the right, back onto the path, and she ran. She didn't look back, she just ran. The next morning, the police and the Coast Guard and volunteers from the village were out scouring the hills and beaches. 2 full days passed, but no body was found. No gate was found, nor graveyard, nor cottage. "Irishman drowned after walking back from the pub" was what made the papers. You ask the people of Torrin though, and they'll tell you they still sometimes see Katy O'Shea wandering through the misty hills at midnight, desperately looking for Sorloths Graveyard and her long-lost love.